This video is sponsored by the visual learning app, Imprint. Discover life-changing insights from philosophy, psychology, and much more. Get a free 7-day trial and 20% off using my link in the description. The year is 1612. Sasaki Kojiro waits on the shore of a small island near Shimonoseki, Japan. He stares out at the horizon, a katana in his hand. He waits to prove himself as the greatest swordsman in all of Japan. That or death. By now, the horizon should contain his opponent. Instead, it contains only the endlessness of anticipation and the heat of increasing frustration. After several hours go by, well past the scheduled time of the duel, finally, a faint silhouette of a boat appears in the distance. On it is Miyamoto Musashi, the swordsman Kojiro must defeat to secure his legacy. As the boat wades closer, moving up and down with the tide, acquiescent yet steady, Kojiro pulses with anger, the pounding of blood echoing in his ears. Once at the shore, Musashi calmly exits the boat and approaches Kojiro. Instead of a katana, he appears to hold a wooden sword, a bokudo. It's difficult for Kojiro to see at first, with the setting sun shining brightly behind Musashi. As Musashi reaches Kojiro, with a steady voice, he says, "You have already lost." Enraged by Musashi's tardiness, his choice of weapon, and his arrogance upon arrival, unable to let another second slip by, Kojiro rushes Musashi. With a lifetime's worth of force, he swings his katana, the fire of rage and ego lighting up his eyes. With an advantage position, with the sun at his back, Musashi dodges Kojiro's slash and returns it with a precise and powerful blow to his head. In an instant, Kojiro falls, his body collapsing into the water's edge, bubbles emanating from his mouth, each taking with them emotion and ego from his now lifeless body. Although likely exaggerated, this is the story of a real duel that took place in the 17th century between two of Japan's most respected swordsmen, Sasaki Kojiro and Miyamoto Musashi. The story is often interpreted as an allegory of two clashing philosophies, with Kojiro representing orthodox technique and skill, and Musashi representing a methodical, unorthodox, and cerebral approach. The lateness, the slowness, the way he used the sun, water, weapon, and psychology of the moment were all part of Musashi's plan, a reflection of his philosophical, almost spiritual approach to both combat and life in general. To better understand the philosophy and insights of Musashi, it is important to understand the story and context of his life. Born in 1584 in Harima Province, Japan, Musashi was the son of Shinmin Yunisai, a renowned martial artist and master swordsman, a brutish and aggressive figure, widely respected and feared. Musashi, however, was an exception to this respect and fear, often clashing with his father and displaying disobedience and resentfulness. Because of this, at around age 7, Musashi was disowned by his father. Soon after, he would be taken in by his uncle, Durinbo, a Buddhist monk practicing at the Shorien Temple near Hirafuku. Here, Musashi obtained a very different education from the one from his father. Learning from Buddhist teachings and becoming increasingly exposed to various forms of art and literature, Musashi would begin to absorb and incorporate a spiritual element into his perspective. Lessons of stillness, impermanence, and non-attachment. Soon, a unique and powerful dichotomy began to take shape within Musashi, one that would go on to define his life and legacy: the disposition for battle and the wisdom of passivity. In the years that followed, Musashi would exhibit one of history's most impressive feats of combat in martial arts. With a career comprising 60 duels, the first occurring at only age 13, each duel fought against highly skilled, formidable opponents, many of them fought to the death. One can only wonder how Musashi's life ended from illness and old age. Despite his unfathomable, albeit likely exaggerated career in combat, arguably, Musashi's most impressive and enduring achievements were not his victories in battle, but rather his victories in philosophy, in understanding the self and the mind. Though perhaps in his case, these two things, philosophy and battle, are one and the same. Before passing around the age of 60, Musashi produced two written works, The Book of Five Rings and Dokudo, or The Way of Walking Alone. The Book of Five Rings is a more practical exploration of Musashi's philosophy on strategy, particularly as it pertains to combat and martial arts, while Dokudo expresses a more holistic and almost spiritual perspective on life in general, listing out Musashi's 21 precepts for living well. Though these two works differ significantly in form and application, both explore the concepts of dedication, strategy, acceptance, detachment, self-reliance, and meaning, all highly influenced by the philosophical and spiritual modes of thought of Zen Buddhism and Taoism. The overarching theme of Musashi's philosophy can perhaps best be summarized with the concept of focus. He frequently refers to focus, not just in the conventional sense of concentration, but also in much deeper forms, like clear intent, devoted attention, emotional control, perceptiveness, and a kind of mental emptiness and adaptability. Fundamentally, no matter who we are and what we do, focus is everything. It is the center of everything we do. Where, when, how, and for how long we direct our attention determines what we feel, how we act and react, what we achieve, and, ultimately, who we are and who we become. Throughout his works, Musashi refers to carrying out well-disciplined focus as the do, or the way. Following the way is, in essence, diligently following one's unique path toward mastery, adaptability, and self-reliance. For Musashi, all of this begins with acceptance. In the first precept of Dokudo, he writes, "Accept everything just the way it is." At first, this might sound strange, something so passive being a fundamental precept of a warrior. But for Musashi, passivity of this form is power. Drawing from ideas in Buddhism, Musashi suggests that we must never act on illusion. And, whether rooted in wishful thinking or emotionally driven preference, our refusal to accept reality creates a foundation of illusion, one that distracts us away from what is true and what can be done. Accept what is, and your ability to act and react without hesitation improves. The amount of energy wasted on fighting inevitabilities reduces, and one's focus centers. Though it can often seem like our preferences determine the quality of our experience in life, it is rather often our ability to shift with the world that regularly opposes our preferences that enhances the quality of our experience. And, perhaps more importantly, this plasticity also enhances our effectiveness. In Precept 11 of Dokudo, Musashi writes, "In all things, have no preferences." By having rigid, stringent preferences, the outside world, which we cannot control, gains control over us, extending outside our reach as it diverges from our illusory expectations. As a result, we often and easily become distracted and emotionally unsettled. In reducing our preferences and expectations, however, or at least being more supple and agile with them, we shorten the mental bridges we must cross to meet reality, and, in doing so, we maintain better equanimity in our mood and our focus. Of course, this is much easier said than done. One cannot simply break free from all preferences, or always fully reduce their rigidness. Even wanting no preferences is a preference. But we don't need to break free from all preferences, at least not totally, to still derive the meaning and effectiveness of Musashi's principle. What matters more, it seems, is what kind of preferences we concern ourselves with, why, and how. Arguably, our most fundamental preference in life is feeling good. For most of us, this is likely an impossible preference to shake free from. But we don't need to. Rather, we can in fact use this foundational preference to help orient our focus. For Musashi, what is worthy of our attention is, in part, found through the distinguishment between pleasure and pleasure for its own sake. In Precept 2 of Dokudo, he writes, "Do not seek pleasure for its own sake." In life, we can feel good as a result of something like the sweetness of a sugary dessert, or something consequential like the achievement of a long-held goal. In the case of the dessert, the experience is both the end and the means. In other words, pleasure for its own sake. Whereas the pleasure experienced as a result of an achievement is the byproduct of other acts. The former is momentary, impulsive, and often physical. The latter is often holistic, meaningful, and advantageous. For Musashi, what we should pursue and focus on here is clear. It's useful to note, however, that Musashi does not explicitly say that indulgent pleasures, like luxury clothing, housing, cuisine, or desserts, are inherently bad. Rather, the pursuance and prioritization of them will simply result in a deviation from the way. Ultimately, pleasure for its own sake is a distraction from our focus, whereas other consequential pleasures are often a product of our focus, a more sustainable and effective way of feeling good. With all this in mind, for many of us, we are still left to wonder, what is the way? How do we determine the way for ourselves? Once one has accepted things as they are, reduced the fixedness of their preferences, and realized that pleasure is not meaningful in and of itself, how does one determine what to focus on from here? For Musashi, this determination can only be made by each individual for themselves. However, crucially, he suggests we must make these determinations through full and clear senses of reason, avoiding impulsiveness, sentimentality, or vague intuition. In Precept 3, he writes, "Do not, under any circumstances, depend on a partial feeling." In other words, we must carefully inspect our thoughts and potential choices for traces of ego, anger, fear, pride, or false preferences, discarding any options that are tainted by these qualities, and, instead, work toward choices and actions grounded in holistic clarity, reason, and confidence. If we don't feel comprehensive clarity or confidence about the reasons for something, then perhaps it isn't the right thing, and we should keep moving. Of course, this is also much easier said than done. It can often be very hard to tell the difference between emotional decisions and well-reasoned ones. The paths to battles we choose to fight are full of mental booby traps. But perhaps in some cases, we must apply Musashi's wisdom to the impossibility of ever fully carrying it out. Perhaps sometimes we must accept our inabilities and failures. In the end, even if we arrive on the right battlefield, the fight over our attention will remain constant. The world swings and slashes at it from every angle, including from inside ourselves. But with Musashi's final words in Dokudo, "Never stray from the way," he reminds us to always continue to fight, to endure, to focus, to stay steady. We must, each of us, try our best to stay true to our hopes and values no matter what enemy invades us, be it the influences of others, the lower impulses of the body, the distracted nature of our thoughts, or the chaos of all things. We must fight like Musashi in his duel against Kojiro, calculated, prepared, aware, patient, confident, adaptable, and willing to strike when the time is right. And when the battle finally comes to an end, hopefully we can at least say, we gave it everything we had. In the words of Musashi, when you are fighting a battle to the death, you must employ all the weapons at your disposal. It is deplorable to die with a weapon yet undrawn. And we are, in every moment, in a sense, in a fight to the death. Maintaining our focus on the right things has never been more difficult than it is today. Information abounds, and yet true learning and wisdom can easily wane as our attention is constantly pulled away by mind-numbing content. This video sponsor, Imprint, is like a beacon of clarity in this sprawling, foggy landscape of distraction. With beautifully animated and gamified courses and bite-sized lessons, Imprint distills down knowledge and insights from areas like philosophy, psychology, science, history, and much more, creating a learning process that is rich, engaging, and easy to incorporate into your daily habits. Whether you want to better understand human social behavior through their course, Interpersonal Dynamics, or discover the wisdom and inner peace of Buddhist teachings in their course, the Dhammapada, Imprint allows you to easily tap into all your favorite subjects and stay focused on what matters, expanding the mind and becoming the person you want to be. With over 50,000 5-star reviews on the App Store and Google Play, and winning awards like Google's App of the Year and Apple's Essential Education app, Imprint has proven that it is an incredible tool to use to invest in yourself. It is a completely new way to learn, built for the modern world, built for focus. Use my link in the description to sign up for Imprint, and you'll receive a 7-day free trial and 20% off your annual premium membership. And of course, as always, thank you so much for watching in general, and see you next video.